Are you capitalizing on finance in order to shorten your sales cycle? That's what we're going to be talking about today, guys. Welcome to Steel Pushers.
And I'm Steve KREBS, the co-founder of Machines for You, and another exciting topic. We just keep bringing them, Lyndon.
That's it. We've got a great topic for you today, guys. Using that the power of finance to shorten your sales cycle. I'm Lyndon Smith, Digital Performance Manager for Queensland, and today we're going to crack on and get it stuck right into this topic, guys, and help you guys out there to shorten that sales cycle using finance.
And this week we've got our first guest, Steve Shirley from Valiant Finance, which, mate, he knows some things when we're talking about finance. And in the second part of the show, you're going to be interviewing him and really finding out some cool things that are going on in this finance machinery space.
Yeah, that's it. Really looking forward to getting one-on-one with Steve Shirley. He's going to have some incredible insights. He's got a wealth of experience to bring to sit in front of this camera and show you guys exactly what the finance industry is, or giving you good insight as to what the finance industry is doing now in the tech space and that digital space.
So as always, if you've got any questions, chuck them through. I'm sure Steve will be happy to answer any of those. So send them through. We love having your input. We've got people from all around the country. And it sounds like you're really enjoying the topics that we're bringing to you.
That's it, guys. Remember, any questions, I think it's 3 questions. The top 3 questions read out online, live on the show, will receive a Steel Pushers prize pack. And remember to tune in for the podcast when you get a chance, with a bit of extra info tacked on to the end of the show. So guys, we'll get stuck in, and to get us off the line, we're going to be talking about how business just is not 9 to 5, Monday to Friday anymore. We've mentioned this a few times in previous episodes, guys, but we're really going to flesh it out because it's true.
Yeah, and you've heard us cracking on, for the last few shows of business isn't 9 to 5 anymore, and I'm sure it's sinking in for all you steel pushers out there. You've seen it in, in the buyer behavior of people coming into your showrooms and going to trade shows and your traffic in your websites. But, 50% of our leads goes through after hours. You're all gone home to your families. It's on Saturday, Sunday now. And the old buyer, the consumer, is in control. But that's what this internet thing's done, Lyndon.
Yeah, that's right.
It's when they want it and on what device they will choose.
Yeah, and we see it, like you just mentioned, we see it through the back end of the traffic on our side as well. Even during the week, Monday through to Friday, most of the leads that come through during business days are between 7 and 9 p.m. at night. So it's very, very clear in today's day and age that the buyer is dictating when they want to make contact, how they want to make contact, and a majority of it is outside of those business hours.
Yeah, so let's bring this back to finance and let's relate to that world in the finance. If someone finds what they're looking for and it's on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon or Saturday morning, and they want to start the process and checking out their finance, they want to do it right now, Lyndon.
Yeah, exactly.
People are getting impatient.
Yeah. Well, we're in a world now where everything needs to be quick. Everything should be right there, ready to go to service that potential customer.
Yeah, you think what Uber's done.
Yeah, exactly right.
Uber Eats, you think back to the process we used to go through, and you might ring up, or quite often you'd drive down to the takeaways and you'd go in and meet someone and talk to them and pitch your order in, and then, wait, have a bit of a chat with the others around, and then all of a sudden, you'd go home with your takeaways. Whereas now, we're not talking to anyone. We're using that Uber Eats app. Bang, someone knocks at the door, dinner's there, Lyndon.
Yeah, that's right. We're talking to people less and less, even though we are more connected. So it's all on the buyer's terms now. And you can use that. You can capitalize on digital finance systems to help start that pre-approval process. You can also use it to help the buyers obtain the information that they require to get the application started as well.
Yeah, well, we know all the finance big companies are out there running around and making these systems because they can just see, in that space now, and in 5 years and 10 years' time, they've got to have a system that, helps the buyer through that buying cycle.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're thinking how we've mentioned in previous episodes where we're talking about depending on obviously the stage of the buying cycle that the buyer might be at, if they're sitting at home and they decide, yep, I'm making the move now, I'm going to get the ball rolling to at least see what I need to acquire, what I need to submit to get things started, they're most likely doing that after they put the kids to bed, had a feed, and they're sitting on the couch.
Or Sunday afternoon when they're thinking about their next week.
Yeah, that period, that Saturday morning, Sunday night?
Sunday arvo, they start preparing for their week. They got to dig holes or chop up wood or, deal with 20 to 30 staff on the Monday. So they want to get the process going maybe on Sunday night.
Yeah, that's right. And touching on what I said before, which is really making sure that you are aware of this, but it's really important to know what stage your prospects are at in their buying cycle.
Yeah, this is a great one, and that's what we've been saying for weeks. 120 days for capital equipment, the average buying cycle of capital equipment. So, we've got to give people the right education. We've got to give them, the right part of the process for where they are along that buying cycle, Lyndon.
Yeah, and you want to make sure that approval, that pre-approval process, or any of those steps towards finance is happening in the later half of that buying cycle. Because if you're approaching a potential prospect, they've only just started really assessing the fact that they've got a need to fill, or that they're doing the research on how they might fill that need, and they're in the consideration stage, you start throwing finance at them at that point. You start pushing through a deal or pushing through a sale to that customer, you're probably going to push them away because they're just not ready yet.
Yeah, and then so many companies aren't gearing up for this. But on the flip side, there's some smart ones who are. So they're the ones who are reaping the reward and controlling the finance better to help shorten that sales cycle. They're, when we talk about all the great marketing people around the world at the moment are saying, it used to be 6 or 7 touch points only 5-8 years ago, whereas now they're talking about 15 touch points, Lyndon, in contact with your buyers.
Yeah, and once those touch points are made as well, it's really important that when you're at that stage of sorting out the finance after you've made those touch points for the buyers, is making sure that it can be put through quickly. The steps speed up. So you get it done on the spot when they need it done, because once that buyer's made a decision, they want the damn thing yesterday. It's like
that's how we're all getting, aren't we? Because we, all this credit. Imagine back to the old days.
Yeah.
You just, you had to save up first before you bought something.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen now, does it? Those magic credit cards, it's just touch, beep on your phone. We don't even see money anymore.
Yeah, I use my phone half the time to pay for stuff, and I end up in a hole. So because you're not handing that cash over.
Yeah.
But guys, it's really important to satisfy those touch points we were talking about. What we're talking about here, it's those points of contact that you really need to make sure that you're actually making with the potential prospect. I've got 6 examples on the screen now, but what are we out to now? They say that
15.
15.
Yeah, 15. So, we want to be the trusted advisor. We want to be the helpful company. We want to be the one who's educating them at the right time. But when they're ready, we've really got to give them a system. When they are good to go, we've got to give them a system to be able to, push that finance through.
Yeah, that's right. And it's important to make sure that when you're doing that, you're using these touch points as an opportunity to educate your prospect, not just sell to them.
So who do we need to start with there? We've got to start with our staff.
Yeah, that's right.
We've got to educate and train our staff to realise, hang on, they're still 120 days out. Let's not ram the finance at them. Let's, give them the education. They watch the video, they watch the PDF, download the PDFs, they get the specs, but train the staff, Lyndon.
Yeah, I mean,
so important.
It's been done to me here at Machines for You. It's being able to come from a position of solving a problem, providing a solution from a point of education, educating the potential buyers, really important, and it is really effective. And it just makes sure that you're coming from the right place, that you're trying to help solve a problem.
Yeah, adding value.
Yeah, that's
right. And we say it to everyone here, if you can't add 10 times the value, don't talk to them, don't call them, don't go and see them.
Yeah.
So we're big on that here.
Yeah, big time. And guys, a cool thing now that you can do as well is you can start leveraging finance options and technology to actually start to shorten that sales cycle even before contact's made with the salesperson.
Yeah, well, back to the point of technology's coming into the space.
Yeah.
And people have been working on it for a while, and there's some smart people now involved in this of bringing the tech side into making that process smoother for the buyer ultimately.
Yeah, and from a dealer's perspective as well, you guys out there pushing steel to market can actually get in contact, start those conversations with your finance partner. Have a chat about what they're doing in the market. Just like we've been speaking with Valiant, you guys out there have a number of finance providers out there that you guys deal with. Get the conversation started. Talk to them about technology they're using to streamline the process. Website plugins, whether there's direct contact or how they can really smooth out that application process can really shorten the sales cycle quickly.
That's what we're working on.
Yeah.
It's about making things easier, for those people after hours. So we're working on that in the back end just to make it easier, just to bring in the tech to make the process smoother. And yeah, as I said before, there's some cool people out there really who are miles ahead of it in this because they've been in the space for so long and they just understand what's actually needed.
Yeah, the modes of communication have changed with how people are applying for finance now. And we're going to get some great insights from Steve shortly about how that's happened, but also one thing you can really do, and I'm sure Steve Shirley can provide us with some really good answers, is to train your sales staff to ask questions that aid in pre-approval.
Yeah, exactly. You want to know right back at the start of the sale. There's some people who, they shouldn't be looking at a used machine. They're just not going to get finance for it, Lyndon. It should be a new sale, and if we find that information out earlier back at the start of the sales cycle, it's going to be better for the customer, and we're going to give them better advice and get them in the right sort of package, I guess.
Yeah, and you've hit the nail on the head there, Steve, again, about providing value by training sales staff to ask those questions and to facilitate that smooth process into finance application. What you're doing as a salesperson then is, one, you're educating. Two, you're, as I mentioned before, providing that solution. And you're also making sure that the place that you're coming from when you're actually making a sale is from a point of service to the customer, not from a sense of, oh my God, I've got to make a sale.
Yeah.
You're actually providing value.
Yeah, give them pre-approval before he even, gets further along the line. Quite often, buyers start and then they're not 100% certain of the right size machine for them. But by getting them pre-approval, it sort of takes the stress off later on once they actually do find that right machine. And that's what we're seeing from a marketplace point of view. The more people who are in these marketplaces that are pre-approved, by the time they find that good machine that they don't want to miss out on, that they can actually get it because they've already got the pre-approval going, Lyndon.
Yeah, it's hitting that point of intent, that point of decision. Yep, I'm making a purchase. Great, let's get the ball started. And if all that pre-approval's done, that finance application just goes through nice and smooth, which sells for the dealer, buys for the buyer. So guys, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back shortly after this. We'll be talking to Steve Shirley.
So if one of your team members come to you and say, I've decided I'm out, they started that process 3 to 4 months earlier. So the reality when a staff member checks out and then you replace them with someone new, you're looking anywhere between 6 and 9 months. One of the most important areas we found when looking at retention of a staff member is actually back at the start. Anytime you guys have a successful sale, you want to ring the gong and then come up here, and the person who did it want to explain why. If they are trained well, they won't take the knocks and they will understand how to do the role better, and ultimately they're going to make you happier, they're going to be happier, and then your customers are going to end up happier. So we are constantly training our people. It's part of our part of the DNA, if you like, of our company. Daily training for everyone in the business. Problem, solution, you know, if you use our mowers, this does this.
He's got a lot of brand pride. He manufactures to Australian environmental conditions.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of people.
So what are you doing in your business to hold on to the best people in your company? A lot of people think, oh, if I train them, they'll leave. What if you don't train them and they stay? You want to have staff who really understand your product and how they're going to serve your clients.
That's the buzz for me.
I've got a mad buzz.
It gives you a freaking buzz.
So over the next few months, we've gone and found a couple of really smart people, and they're going to be helping you with recruiting the right people into your business. And then the next part of the stage is we've got a person to come and help you with inducting those people into your business.
Welcome back to Steel Pushers, guys, and I'm joined by Steve Shirley from Valiant Finance. He's a fellow who's had 10 years in the insurance game, 5 years in the finance game, and a small business owner for the last decade. Steve, welcome to Steel Pushers. Great to have you on board.
Thanks very much for having me. Really excited to be here.
So, Steve, look, we're going to get a lot of really valuable insights from yourself about how far the technology's come, you know, even a bit of an insight into what you guys at Valiant are doing as well. So, yeah, mate, let it roll. I'd love to hear what you guys have got in the ballpark.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I think, like you and Steve were talking about before, there's big changes in the way that we deal with customers. Customers don't want to deal with people in the old traditional ways. They want to engage in their own time, at their own pace, and they want to have all of the information ready straight away. So we're very conscious of that you've got to have a platform where they can take real-time market responses that satisfy their needs as customers, so they can get a really good view of the finance market, and they can do it from the comfort of their own home.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know Valiant's working on some great technology. And I know there's a lot of finance systems out there in place on websites all over the place, but we've got a good example, and we do have the privilege of being able to show you one firsthand. So what we're seeing and what the guys out there are seeing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So ultimately this is a wizard tool which gives us an opportunity to quote live for customers. I think it's still coming up, but so really what we're doing is we're asking a series of questions to customers. They have really simple response stuff. Oh, here we go. Really simple response stuff. How much money do they need? As you can see coming up there, and what exactly do they need it for? Obviously machinery in our context. You'll see a ticker at the bottom there. What we're doing is showing people how many options they've got in the market, so we can understand the type of equipment that they're looking to buy, and the type of customer that they are. What do they want? Do they want loans quickly, or do they want the cheapest interest rate? A little bit about their business. How long have they been in business? And of course, how much revenue are they making as a business, as a key indicator of how much finance they can obtain. We captured some simple details for the customer during the process, obviously, because at some point they're going to want to have a discussion around this. And then in the background, a live overview of the market is presented from the best solutions for that customer are presented when you click Get Your Finance Options, which we'll see in a second. So really what we're doing here is giving the customer some real feedback about what the customer can attract from a finance perspective in the market. So as you can see here, there's two options. They're branded. Everyone will know those brands. They're speaking specifically to the type of products they can get. So we're really putting informed finance offerings in front of the customers for us to have a real discussion about.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's all about making it easier for the buyer to obtain those finance options. But it's also about, for you guys out there as dealers, making that, again, that sales cycle a hell of a lot shorter, which means you're doing right by the customer. And I mean, you guys, it just makes it easier and a hell of a lot stressful on the dealer themselves. Yeah,
absolutely, because the sales guys can have these discussions as well. This tech is open to the sales guys, it's open to the customers, so everyone can have an open discussion about what's happening in the market and what they can do.
Yeah, fantastic. So, look, I've got a couple of really poignant questions. I mean, we did touch on it very briefly just before we took the break, Steve, where we were talking about how it's a good thing to probably train your staff in pre-approval questions, sort of almost pre-qualifying questions that your staff can then ask a potential buyer.
Yeah.
Can you give us an insight into what some good questions might actually be in order to help with pre-approval of finance that the salesperson can ask those potential customers?
Absolutely, and I think that's a really important part of it. We see ourselves as an extension. Finance should be an extension of your sales team. So having some indication of the sort of questions that are going to help them attract finance is really useful. And I think a few to call out. Time in business is really important. How long your ABN's been running specifically, and the sort of experience that your customers have in that industry obviously goes a long way to building a narrative for them so that they can access some of the finance contracts.
Yep.
Deposits are another a big question. Obviously, if you've got some skin in the game, then you're a better risk. You're a good chance at attracting finance. So a bit of an understanding about how much cash they might have available to them. The other thing is work sources and contracts. Obviously, they're going to have to pay for this finance contract, and so they need to make sure they've got the work to support it. That's really important. Property ownership would be the last one I would speak to, and that is that obviously speaks to a level of creditworthiness on the part of the customer. And so I think that and all of those other things put you in a really good position to understand that customer and their needs.
And when they're asking these questions, if you've trained sales staff to ask these questions, guys, it's what it's going to do is. Again, like I was mentioning before, you're coming from a place of education, you're coming from a place of actually you're providing service to the customer, and you're actually ticking off a number of boxes well before any hurdles come up. So you're clearing that path, making it a lot easier to get the process through. The next thing I really want to talk to about, and I know Steve did, as he said in the promo video, champing at the bit. Oh, I say chomping, but champing at the bit he's champing at the bit to know the answer to this one. But what has changed in the machinery finance world after the Banking Royal Commission earlier this year?
Yeah, it's a pretty hot topic. I think the Royal Commission itself really was focused on the consumer world, but it has had some impacts in asset finance and commercial finance specifically. I think two of the major changes, really the first one would be visibility over interest rates that sit within finance contracts. Historically, maybe a little bit cloak and dagger, that always hasn't been transparent, but now there is lenders will actually show on contracts all of the interest rates and the costs associated. So it's obviously a really good thing for customers.
Yep.
That's been a substantial change. And also historically, there's a lot of products in the market that don't always require a huge amount of information. You tick a few boxes and you can get a credit contract. Increasingly, that's harder to access, and more information is being sought by the lenders in order for us to give customers access to those products. So I think ultimately it's about gathering more information and making sure customers can access the right products for them.
That's great, and that transparency seems like a big thing too. I mean, even from personal experience, and I'm sure all of you guys out there, when you've applied for finance, even just for a car, especially back in the day, the hidden fees, all the as you mentioned, I love that saying, that cloak and dagger type of mentality when it comes to approaching a finance option. It does put a lot of unrest into a potential buyer's mind, and even from a dealer's perspective, it can make them worry a little about whether or not they should be providing finance to that potential buyer, which sort of brings me to my next question, is what, with those changes and with that transparency coming in, how does that impact the buyer and the dealer?
Yeah, I love that idea about being able to sleep at night. Like, I'm a small businessman myself, and I know when you speak to customers, you want to make sure that they're being looked after and their best interests are being protected. So I think from a dealer perspective, when some of those changes now, you know that your customers are being put into products where their best interests are being protected, and they're being protected by law. So that's a really great change. You can speak with real confidence to the finance products that they're accessing because you really must jump through all of the hurdles and make sure that they're being presented with really strong options. So that's a real comfort from a dealer, because you want to look after these customers. These are guys you've got relationships with a lot of the time. You want to retain those relationships and be that trusted advisor. The only way you can do that is by putting them into good contracts, and those changes really do help with that. I think from a buyer's perspective, Look, again, it's about being able to sleep at night. It's about knowing that you've got real transparency and you're comfortable to go back and make purchases. So if you're concerned about the finance piece, maybe you're going to be scared off a little bit about making a purchase. But for a customer to know that they're entirely protected, that they have complete visibility and transparency over the products they're going into, then of course they're going to be more prepared to make purchases.
Well, yeah, it definitely seems like there's a lot more accountability in the space now.
That's exactly right.
And that works really well on both ends, both from a dealer and a buyer's perspective. And what I'd really like to sort of get your insights on as well is if, with the changes in the modes of communication from a finance perspective, like there's a lot more, I suppose it's not so much that there is less or more risk, it's more that they don't feel like they've got so much on the line. Would you say that? Like when applying for a finance on any particular machine, especially if it's a high dollar value machine, I would imagine that, you know, back in the day, like I mentioned before, you know, how Grandpa back in the day, when he wanted a tractor, he'd walk into a bank, he'd have a list of everything that he owned, he'd hand it to the bank manager, and the bank manager's looking at that going, right, cool, if you don't make your payments, I can have all this seems good, I'll give you your finance.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, it's coming, I know that obviously it's very different now, but it does definitely seem that like there's a lot less risk involved and a lot less at stake.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes down to transparency and being able to show customers precisely what they're signing up to, and that's why tools like that we showed you before that make a seamless process for customers to understand precisely what products are appropriate for them in the first instance, and then at the back end, having both the advice with the right finance partners. As well as the transparency in those products and the contracts that we spoke to, that gives a lot more confidence for everyone involved. So that protection really is there now.
Yeah, fantastic. And having that ability, I mean, looking at that video that we saw before, if obviously not just from your perspective, you know, being at Valiant Finance, but also from other finance providers that are in the space and working in the digital space, it's great to see so much transparency and so much ease of access for the buyer on websites, on dealership websites, on capital equipment websites, and on marketplace websites as well, because it's really streamlining that application process. It's really shortening that buying cycle, which is what today's topic was all about. And if you're shortening that buying cycle, you're making it, you guys out there push and steal are making more money, and the guys that are buying the gear, they're way happier, they're getting their gear faster, and there's a lot less stress involved, which is a really key aspect and something that's really grown in that finance space, I think.
Yeah, it has. The tech and the transparency are really where the whole market's going, and we're really excited to be a part of that.
Fantastic. Look, it's been fantastic having
Thanks
yourself
so much
on board, Steve Shirley. It's you've provided a lot of valuable insights that I myself definitely couldn't have provided. The guys out there pushing steel, you know a lot more than I do in the finance game, guys. So in summary, the main things to remember and take out of today's episode is remember to capitalise on the technology available. We've been talking about it with Steve for the last 15 minutes. You know, get those pre-approvals started. Use that tech that's available to you. Talk to your finance providers. Start those conversations. Also, guys, be aware of what stage your prospects are at in the buying cycle. Don't push that finance too early. Make sure that you're aware of whether or not they're in consideration, whether or not they're at that ready, yep, I've got intent to buy, let's do this and get the ball rolling, so that you know really when to strike with that hammer while it's hot. Satisfy those touch points, guys. I know there's a lot of them now, but you know, get exposure to the client, to the buyer through website, through Facebook, through your social media, through phone contact, through email follow-ups. Whatever you've got to do, make sure you hit all of those touch points and leverage those partnerships with your finance providers and teach your sales staff to ask those pre-approval questions. That's really going to help you guys out and shorten that sales cycle. So, guys, look, remember to hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell so you know when the next episode is coming. Also, remember to check out the streaming platforms for our podcast. So there's a lot of extra information in there for you as well. And for next fortnight's episode, we'll be talking about machinery dealership websites. So guys, we're going to give you a lot of insights and tips on how to sync your website with marketplaces, how to capitalize on making sure that all of your equipment is listed. We mentioned this in last fortnight's episode. Put it everywhere, guys. So we'll have a lot of really valuable insights for you there. Remember, guys, we're here to help you buy better and sell faster. And I'll see you in a fortnight's time on the next episode of Steel Pushers.